Okay, part three. I think I can probably get through the lecture in this last chunk of time here. So we were talking about hearing and equilibrium, got through hearing. So let's do equilibrium. And so essentially what happens is detected by hair cells. And let me just kind of draw just a real quickie what a hair cell. So if here's a surface, a hair cell has got little hairs on the top, and when those hairs when they move, they send a signal. Basically, it causes the cell to depolarize, like we talked about, and that sends an electrical signal out to the nerve and then to the brain. Okay. In the semicircular canals, they're filled with endolymph, remember, and when you move, it causes the fluid to push against these hair cells, and that causes the hair cells to move too, right? Hair cells and hair cells. When movement of the head or the body causes the endolymph to basically move in the opposite direction. Okay, so if your head pushes that way, the endolymph is going to be pushing the opposite direction. Oops, can't see that. If I move my head that way, because of gravity, the endolymph is basically moving in the opposite direction, and that causes the hair cells to be stimulated. Got my mugs of felt markers here, and I'm getting purple skin because of it. Okay, so there's two types of equilibrium, and they're handled in different ways. Equilibrium. This is static, means staying still. Static equilibrium is the sense of position and balance. Position. It's an N there. Balance. Stability. And posture. When the head is not moving. And this is detected in the saccule and utricle. This is also how acceleration is detected. So in the utricle and saccule, so here's the inside. This is not a very accurate drawing, but here's the inside of excuse me, of the utricle, and you have these hair cells. And it's surrounded by this gelatinous kind of matrix, or they are, and embedded. What can I draw? Embedded within the gelatin are these structures that are called otoliths, that are calcium carbonate. Oops. right there again, O2 liths. And they're essentially like stone, basically. So they make that gelatinous material like a little bit heavier, so that if the head moves in this direction, that's the movement of the head. And remember, this is all filled with endolymph. So when the head moves that direction, the endolymph ends up getting pulled in the opposite direction, which causes that whole gelatinous thing to move in that direction, and then that stimulates the hair cells to move. Okay, so if you take your head and pretend that's up and that's down. If you turn your head to the side like that, those gelatinous, the matrix there is going to move down because of gravity, right? And you're going to detect that as like now your head is sideways rather than being upright. Same thing, if you accelerate really quickly, the gelatinous is going to get pulled in the opposite direction because of gravity, and you're going to detect that within the utricle and saccule. Okay, so that's static equilibrium. So this is like if you're hanging upside down and you're not moving, you know that you're hanging upside down because of the static equilibrium. Even if your eyes are closed, you know that you're hanging upside down, right? Now, if we compare that to dynamic equilibrium, this is the sense of what's called angular motion or rotation of the head. Angular motion or rotation of the head. And these are detected in the semicircular canals. If we go back to my really bad drawing of the semicircular canals, again, look at a picture in the book or online or something like that. These are semicircular, they're semicircles, and they're set in different planes so that no matter how you move your head, you'll be able to detect it. And it's the same concept here. If you turn your head a certain way, the fluid in the semicircular canals is going to go the opposite direction of the head movement, and the fluid's going to stimulate hair cells that are located kind of down here in the base of these things. So essentially, movement of the head causes the endolymph to move in the opposite direction. Through the canals, of course. And then the hair cells that are embedded, hair cells and another similar but different gelatinous matrix are stimulated. By the movement of the endolymph. Okay, So if here's the base, and instead of it being kind of a flat one like I showed on this here, they're more kind of, I don't know, like oval shaped, and you've got the hair cells down here. That's not accurate, but and then when you move your head in that direction, it causes the endolymph to go in the opposite direction, and that pushes that whole thing, stimulates the hair cells, and you send a signal like, oh, okay, we're spinning now. All right. It's actually one of the reasons why when you get sick on a roller coaster is because your eyes are telling, I mean, these all, your senses all work together, right? And your eyes are telling your body that you're, say, spinning to the right, when in reality, I mean, it's happening so fast that your brain kind of can't keep up with it. That your inner ear is telling you one thing and your eyes are telling you something else. So basically, what you do, the body says, "All right, I can't figure this out, so I'm going to throw up." Okay. So, last one. Special sense of sight or vision. Okay. The type of receptors. Hopefully this is a no-brainer. They're photoreceptors and they're concentrated in the eyes. The accessory parts of the eyes. These include the eyelid. Hopefully needs no explaining. And I used to know kids who could do this like in elementary school. They could take their eyelid and kind of bend it back and it would stay. That kind of raw other side of the eyelid is known as the conjunctiva. Conjunctiva. And then you have a lacrimal gland that is on the lateral side of the eye, kind of superior and lateral side of the eye. And this is what secretes tears that lubricate the eye. And then go to the medial side of the eye and drain down into the nasal cavity. Tears, and you have 6 what are known as extrinsic muscles that control the movement of the eye. I drew this on the board the other day, but I think I might just go ahead and do it again, even though it's not. Okay. Let's start with the outside. So the white part of your eye is the sclera, and then when it comes around to the anterior side, it becomes clear and is known as the cornea. And then back here we've got the optic nerve. which is cranial nerve 2. Or part of it. The iris is the colored part of your eye that opens and shuts. And the space that it forms between it is known as the pupil. And then this is the lens. There are muscles that control the shape of the lens and the size of the pupil, and those are called intrinsic. Control the lens shape and the, let's say the, I don't know if diameter is the right word, diameter, or the opening of the iris. Shape. Okay. So those are intrinsic muscles versus the ones that are outside are called the extrinsic muscles. The inside layer, I don't know if you can tell, of the eye is the retina. And right where the optic nerve comes in, so all these neurons are going to converge there and then go out through the optic nerve. So you end up with this spot here that's basically, it's the blind spot, or it's called the optic disc. Causes the blind spot. And there's a region called the Macula lutea. I'm just going to draw it here. And this is the retinal area with the sharpest vision. Oh boy. The region between the cornea and the lens is called the Anterior Segment, and it is filled with what's known as the aqueous humor. Aqueous humor. Okay, so that's from the cornea to the lens, and then from the lens back, that is known as the posterior segment. And when you guys were doing the dissections, there was that jelly-like substance that I told you to don't push too hard, it'll scorch you. With the vitreous humor is what that's called. So humor just means fluid. All right. So the pathway of light traveling through the eye should actually stop the video now and quiz yourself and then turn it back on and see if you got it right. So first, light's going to come through the cornea. and then pass through the pupil, and then pass through the lens, and then finally it's going to hit the retina, which is how it's turned this. It's converted from light signal into an electrical signal that goes to the brain. So the photoreceptors in the retina convert light signals or stimulus into electrical ones that go to the brain. There, you probably have heard of these. There are two types. Rods are photoreceptors that detect shades of gray. And cones that detect color. All right. Some problems that are associated with the eye. Eyes, I guess. There's one called Conjunctivitis, commonly known as pink eye. And this is an inflammation of the conjunctiva. And this can be caused by allergies or an infection. By bacteria or a virus. Styes are pus-filled swelling of the eyelid, near the rim of the eyelid. At the edge of the eyelid. And this can either be caused by the follicle at the eyelash becoming inflamed, or blockage of a small gland. Small gland. This is infection of a follicle, an eyelash follicle. Some problems with sight include myopia. This is nearsightedness. And this is when the lens focuses the light, which normally should be focused right at the retina, right? Focuses the light in front of the retina. And then the opposite, I guess, of that would be hyperopia. Farsightedness. And presbyopia. This is the loss of elasticity of the lens. Elasticity in the lens, and this occurs with age, which is why by the time you hit 40 or 50, you're probably going to need reading glasses, if not before that. So you lose what's known as accommodation. Just the ability to focus on close things, let's just say, like when you're reading a book. Astigmatism is another sight problem, and this is a problem with the curvature of the lens. Basically the shape, curvature. And it leads to blurry vision. And this is very common. And then lastly, color blindness. And this is a problem associated with the cones. In the retina. Basically, two different colors are interpreted or perceived as just being one. This is often inherited. Inherited is one word. And more common in men. Men and women. And the reason for this is because if you understand much about genetics, it's a recessive disorder that's on the X chromosome. And men, you only have one X chromosome. So all you need is one copy of the recessive faulty gene and you're colorblind. Women need to have two copies of it because they are XX, they got two X chromosomes. So if they get one faulty one, they're still okay with the other X chromosome being all right. So they need two copies of it. We only need one, guys. So, okay, that's it for the senses, and I will see you in Zoom.